Welcome to the student walkthrough video for GCSE History, Paper 3, Question 3a. We will look at how the question is constructed, how to answer it, and tips on what makes a good answer. We have other videos available for this paper as a whole and also for each question in detail. Question 3 is a package and worth over half the marks on this paper, focusing on sources and interpretations. It consists of 4 parts addressing the same inquiry. Follow the order provided as the steps are designed to guide you towards success in the final judgment question. Question 3a focuses on analysing and evaluating source utility. That means how useful is a source for a specified inquiry. You're given 2 sources. They can be written or visual, but at least one will be written. You will need to make judgments about the usefulness of both the sources. This question is worth 8 marks and you should spend around 15 minutes or 19 minutes if you have additional time. There are 3 things that you need to do when you approach this question. For each source, you need to consider the content, provenance, and contextual knowledge. So what information does the source show that you could use as evidence for the topic in the question? For the provenance, does the nature, that's the type of source, or origin, or purpose make it more or less useful? And then does your knowledge support or challenge the source, or the source's provenance? It's not about writing huge amounts. 1 point on each of these 3 aspects can achieve a high mark if done well. How do you discuss the provenance of a source? Well, it needs to be specific to the individual source and the inquiry focus in the question. You only need to discuss one aspect of provenance, whether that be nature or origin or purpose. So think carefully about which one is most relevant. Is it the author, the date, the location? Is it from a key person? Why was it made? And absolutely avoid generic and simplistic statements because they're really unlikely to achieve high marks. And a list of the 4 most common ones we see are below. We'll see now from this question, the provenance tells us that it's a photograph published in a German newspaper in 1935. It was taken by Hitler's official photographer. So you would need to discuss the content of this and how that is useful for this inquiry on understanding Nazi methods of control of the German people in the years 33 to 39. Then you would need to discuss the provenance. You could choose to discuss the origin of this photograph, the fact that it was printed in a newspaper, and you could use it then as an example of propaganda being spread through 2 different forms of media, both the print and the radio, to get the Nazi message wider. Or you could discuss the different aspect of provenance, purpose of the photograph, or who was the intended audience, what effect was it intended to have, and that Hitler may have intended to use the photograph as propaganda since the provenance tells us it was taken by his official photographer. Let's now have a look at a sample answer for this question. This candidate begins by discussing the content of source C as shown in red here, clearly showing an awareness of what the source is about. Then they also use some contextual knowledge as highlighted in green, that the Nazis had propaganda people and that in Germany many people listened to the radio. And notice here underlined in purple how the candidate uses the content and contextual knowledge to support their judgments on utility. They're bringing it back to the focus of the question, Nazi methods of control. But what's missing? Well, of the 3 aspects we needed to consider, we're missing the provenance. Let's have a look at a top performing answer now. As previously, the content discussion and contextual knowledge are effectively interwoven throughout the answer. Notice how they're not just standalone comments, but again are linked back to the inquiry focus of the question. The provenance here refers to the purpose of the source, and there's some reference to the date. and again this is interwoven with other discussions around the content and contextual knowledge to make a judgment. This is a concise answer which covers all aspects of the mark scheme required for this source. They would then need to repeat this process for source B as well in order to access the full 8 marks. Here are some sample question 2s for all the options for this paper. They may be useful for you to practice. Here is a summary of what we've discussed through this video about what the examiner is looking for, along with some tips for you to remember as you practice and prepare for your exams. That brings us to the end of this walkthrough video. Remember, we have videos for every question for each paper available. More information for students can be found on our website under Student Support. Good luck in your upcoming exams.